Good morning. Good morning. And any morning we are together is always a good morning. In fact, if we are together morning, noon, or night, it is still good. Welcome to the live in-person and live Zoom worship service of the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside. Our opening hymn this morning is number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, from the Gray Hymnal. Feel free to rise or sing as the Spirit moves you. The lyrics will also be projected on the screen. Now please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of living, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come, 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 whoever you
You may be seated. Thank you for joining us here in person, and thank you for joining us remotely by Zoom, where we will continue live streaming and posting these services on our YouTube channel for our virtual attendees. I am Nick Williams, a member of the worship committee, and I will be your worship associate today. Other members of the worship committee who make this service possible includes Adam Wedeking, who monitors our visual and online connections, Kate Lewicki, who is in charge of our sound system. We welcome you to join us this morning with an open mind and an open heart. Please leave your defenses at the door and trust that what happens in worship is inspiring and powerful. Together, we affirm that this day, our being together can make each of us braver, more compassionate, and wiser as we begin a new day and a new week. Before we move into the service, there are a few announcements we would like to share. We will mention several websites, emails, and phone numbers, but at the end of the service, we will leave up a slide with all this information, and it will be available on our website. The monthly newsletter, UUCR newsletter, comes out the first of every month by email and per request by postal. If you have something newsworthy or that you would like to contribute, email uuchurchofriverside.calendar@gmail.com or call the church office at 951-686-6515. If you would like to be added to our mailing list, please contact the church office. The congregational meeting will be held today in the sanctuary around noon. All those who are interested in the organization of UU are invited to attend. However, please note that only members are allowed to vote. We will be approving the budget and making plans for the future of the church. Your input is important to the advancement and growth of our spiritual community. Please join us after the service for lunch before the congregational meeting. Sandwiches will be served. Contributions are appreciated and will be donated to the church fund. Our time is brief, but it is filled with joy. In that spirit, I invite you to turn to those around you, greet them, welcome them, share that joy. For those on Zoom, you can use the Zoom wave gesture or just wave at the camera. You have a friend named Peace?
Yes.
Ah. Welcome to all our visitors today, and welcome back to our friends, to our old friends, as well as new ones. We would love to meet you during coffee hour in the parish hall after the service, where you can also find our visitors tablet. Please leave your name before you leave so that we know you were here, and leave your contact information if you want updates on church events. There will also be a short discussion after the service to share your reflections with us. For those online, the best way to get added to the mailing list is to email the church office at admin@uuchurchofriverside.org. And now I invite you to sit back, take a slow, deep breath as we move into the worship hour. You're welcome to read with me the mission statement of our church. Our mission is to foster a diverse religious community that celebrates life, affirms the individual, encourages spiritual growth and open thought, and works to advance social justice and environmental sustainability. Today's speaker is UUCR Board President and member Adam Wedeking. Adam discovered the UU faith protesting against Proposition 8, which outlawed same-sex marriage in California. Previously, a member of the Temecula UU Fellowship and the Church of the Larger Fellowship, that's for UUs without a home church. He did that until he came to UUCR in 2016. He is the chair of our Social Environmental Justice Committee and the current board president of our church. In this sermon, Housing First, an evidence-based approach that pairs permanent housing with voluntary supportive services to end homelessness. Drawing on our UU values of equity, justice, and interdependence, we'll examine why stability must come before transformation, why science and spirit point in the same direction, and how our congregation can turn compassion into concrete action for housing justice in our community. We now have the lighting of two sacred flames. The first is a remembrance candle for the indigenous people who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. We remember that we live off the unceded land of several indigenous peoples, including the Cahuilla, the Lusania, the Serrano, the Quitus, the Cupaño, and others. We light this sacred flame in their remembrance and in recognition of their ongoing struggle for freedom and dignity. Our second sacred flame is our own chalice, the symbol of our faith. We are blessed with this space and opportunity to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to be part of a world community for peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. Today's chalice reading are the words from Where the Streets Are Holy by Craig Rowland. We light this chalice for the sacred that walks unshod through alleyways, that leans against brick walls with smoke on its breath, that hums in neon flicker and bus exhaust. This flame burns for the holiness found in dirty hands, in cracked voices, in those moments of sudden stillness between sirens and footsteps. Not every sanctuary has walls. Some are made of shadow and asphalt. Some are stitched together from longing, kindness, and sheer survival. We light this flame to remember divinity does not always wear white. Sometimes it wears denim. Sometimes it looks like a stranger, holding the door for just a moment longer. It burns to show us what's real. Our hymn now is number 123, Spirit of Life, from the gray hymnal. Feel free to rise or sing as the Spirit moves you. The lyrics will also be projected on the screen. Now please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life.
Away.
may be seated. This portion of our service is to support our beloved historical church. This can be accomplished several ways. In addition to the weekly collection, you may send your checks to the church address, which is shown here. You may contribute by PayPal using the QR code, which is shown here, as well as on the church website and in the newsletter. Gift cards that support the church can be purchased through Raise Right for hundreds of places like Target, CVS, many restaurants, and more. You get the full value and the church receives a percentage for free. Please see Robert Braun in the church office if you're interested in purchasing Raise Right gift cards to support the church. Please donate as the Spirit moves you by whatever method works best for you. Thank you for your generosity. To those who give of their time and their talent, thank you for your generous care and attention. To all of you who have joined us here today, thank you for the gift of your presence. Will our ushers now please come forward to receive the collection? A tote bag will also be passed around to collect food and hygiene items for those in our local community. Thanks, Pete. Our next hymn is number 1010, We Give Thanks, from the Teal hymnal. Feel free to rise or sing as the Spirit moves you. The lyrics will also be projected on the screen. Now please rise, embody your spirit, and join us in singing hymn number 1010, We Give Thanks, in the Teal hymnal.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for gathered here, cast far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
This is the part of the service where we center ourselves and ground ourselves in the present moment. Please sit back, relax, and if you wish, gently close your eyes. Our meditation today is a prayer addressing all hungers by Deborah Smith. We are hungry. We are eating our daily bread and bowing our heads, and yet we are hungry. We are thanking the farmer and the farm worker, and yet we are hungry. We are speaking in spaces for food that is healthy, and still we are hungry. We are tiring of slogans that say, feed the children, and mean, feed the children leftovers. We are hungry for something that feeds more than our bodies. Help us, O you who apportion the funds. Find in your hearts the children who you were when you would share with a friend, free and friendly. Let us not and lead us not into meanness. For we are hungry. We want the loaves and the fishes, the water and the wine of sweet justice for all. We are hungry. Now let us pause for a moment of silence. Now I would like to introduce Adam Wedeking, speaking to us on Love is Home, why housing first works and why our faith demands it.
Thank you. 1 second here. Sorry about that. We were short-staffed this morning, so I ended up having to do both things. So let's see if I can get this now. There we go. Good morning.
Morning.
So I wanted to start. See if I can get my phone there. I want to start by asking you to think about the door to your home. Think about the last time you walked through it. Maybe it was late. Maybe you were tired or worried, carrying the weight of a hard day. You turned the key, you stepped inside, you set down your bag, maybe you took off your shoes. And whether you noticed or not, something in your body changed. Your shoulders dropped, your breathing slowed, your nervous system, without any real instruction, began to soften. Home is where survival mode ends. Now imagine not having that, not just for a night or a week, but for months, years. Imagine every possession you own fitting into a backpack or a cart. Imagine not knowing where you will sleep tonight. Imagine trying to recover from illness or trauma or addiction while living entirely in public space. where there's no door to close, no place to exhale, no sanctuary from the public eye. For thousands of people in our city, in our state, and across this country, that is reality. And so this morning, I want to talk about an idea that's changed how communities address homelessness, an idea called Housing First. But more than that, I want to talk about what Housing First can teach us about our own UU values, about who we are as a faith and who we're called to be. And it begins with a question. Do people deserve shelter only after they prove they are ready for it? Or do people deserve shelter because they are human? I'd like to start this discussion by clarifying a common misunderstanding. Housing First is not housing only. It's not a model that hands someone a key and then walks away. Housing First is an approach that recognizes an important truth about human beings, that we can't heal, grow, or transform our lives while we're still fighting for basic survival. So Housing First suggests removing the chaos of homelessness first, giving people a door, a bed, a place to breathe. And then from that stable foundation, we can offer the support services that help people truly thrive. And those services that are involved with the Housing First model are really important. They include case management, mental health care, help accessing benefits, assistance with medical care, and support in building community connections. They're personalized services and they're ongoing, but they're also voluntary. They're offered, not demanded. For decades, our dominant approach to homelessness was something called treatment first, or what some might call the staircase model. The logic sounded reasonable. First, before you get housing, you've got to prove that you're sober, prove that you're in treatment, prove you can hold a job, prove you are housing ready. Climb the staircase step by step, and housing awaits for you at the top. But decades of research has shown that that staircase is broken. People fall off. People die on the steps. And the few who make it to the top are usually those who needed the help the least to begin with. Housing First reverses that order. It says stable housing is the foundation of human flourishing. It's not something you earn, it's something you need in order to earn anything at all. You can't climb if you're still falling. You can't work on your addiction while sleeping in the river bottom, wondering if you're going to survive the night. You can't really take advantage of mental health treatment when all of your mental and physical energy is used up by the survival demands of being homeless. Housing First gives people housing first, permanent, affordable housing without conditions, and then surrounds them with the services they need to build stable lives. The housing is not temporary, it's not conditional, it's a home with a key and rights and dignity. And the services don't stop when someone stumbles. They persist, they adapt, and they meet people where they are. I'm a person of faith, but I believe that when faith and evidence are pointing in the same direction, we should pay attention. And on Housing First, the evidence is overwhelming. I really try to not make this just a list of facts and studies because there is a huge amount of evidence on Housing First. A review of 26 studies found that compared to Treatment First program, Housing First reduced homelessness by 88%. One of the first Housing First initiatives, the Pathway to Housing program, showed that after 5 years, 88% of Housing First participants remained housed, compared to only 47% of people on Treatment First programs. And the benefits go beyond just housing stability. People in Housing First programs have fewer hospitalizations, fewer emergency room visits, fewer arrests, fewer jail stays. One study in LA found that chronically homeless individuals with disabilities entering supportive housing reduced public costs by 79%. Another study found that Housing First programs generate an average cost savings on emergency services of $31,545 per person over 2 years. And the Community Preventive Services Task Force found that for every dollar invested in permanent supportive housing through a Housing First model, society saves $1.44 in costs related to things like policing and emergency room visits. Charlotte, North Carolina saved $2.4 million in a single year after launching a Housing First program. So we're not being asked to choose between compassion and fiscal responsibility. We're being offered something that often seems rare, an approach that's both morally right and practically sound. The fears around Housing First policies, that giving people housing without requiring them to earn it will enable or worsen harmful behavior, are not supported by the evidence. In fact, studies show that people in Housing First programs are more likely to reduce their alcohol use over time, more likely to continue with medicated assisted treatment for opioid use, and are more likely to engage in voluntary mental health services. Why? Because dignity is not a reward for good behavior. Dignity is the condition that makes good behavior possible. When people have a home, when they're treated as worthy of care regardless of their struggles, when they're given choice rather than force and judgment, they respond. They heal, they grow, not because they were forced to, but because they were finally given the conditions in which healing and growth can become possible. Treatment first and abstinence-based programs don't just have lower success rates, they actively harm the people they claim to help. One study found that people who were involuntarily committed for drug treatment were twice as likely to die from an overdose as those who received treatment voluntarily. Twice as likely to die. When people are forced into treatment and they have bad experiences, that damages their trust in the healthcare system, making them less likely to seek care later on. Criminalizing homelessness, like arresting and fining and incarcerating people for the act of existing without housing, doesn't reduce homelessness, it increases it, making it harder for the person now living with a conviction to find housing. There we go. So criminalizing homelessness doesn't reduce homelessness, it increases it, making it harder for that person who now has a conviction to find housing. And then you're using money to arrest and imprison them that could be used on real solutions that can actually solve the problem. And the disproportionate weight of these forced policies is on Black and Indigenous people. It's on people of color, on people with disabilities, and it's on LGBTQ youth, who are largely overrepresented in the homeless population because so many of them have been rejected by their families and their communities. When we set conditions on who deserves shelter, we create inequality. Our value of interdependence calls us to see this. These are not separate crises. Homelessness, racism, disability discrimination, LGBTQ exclusion, they're all a single intersectional system of harm. And Housing First is one of the clearest tools for beginning to dismantle it. So why should Unitarian Universalists care about Housing First? Because this approach isn't just compatible with our values, it really is an embodiment of them. The Unitarian Universalist Association's new Article 2 places love, the power that holds us together, at the center. And around that center are 6 shared values. Let's take a look at these values. First, justice. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. Justice asks us to look honestly at the systems that shape people's lives. Homelessness is often treated as an individual failure, a personal moral failing, or a series of bad choices. But justice calls us deeper. What kind of society produces homelessness? And what kind of society could end it? Housing First is one answer. It refuses to blame the victim. It recognizes that homelessness is produced by a lot of different factors, including housing costs and wages, health care access, and historic patterns of discrimination like redlining. And it responds not with punishment, but with real structural change. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. When we set conditions on who deserves shelter, we don't set them equally. Housing First dismantles those conditional barriers. Equity. We declare that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. This is not a conditional worth, not the worth of people who have first checked certain boxes or passed certain tests or become housing ready. This is inherent worth, worth that precedes achievement, that survives failure and can't be lost. What does it mean to declare that a person sleeping outside tonight is inherently worthy? It means we don't ask them to prove that they deserve a door and a bed. It means we recognize that their humanity is enough. Housing First says you don't need to become who we think you should be before we treat you as you already are. Come in. Here's your home. Now let's walk together from here. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build fully accessible and inclusive communities. Housing First is exactly that kind of building. It removes barriers that say some must earn what others are just born into. It creates communities where everybody has the ability to flourish. Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. But transformation rarely happens in crisis. It happens in safety. Housing First creates the condition where transformation becomes possible. It says we won't wait for you to heal before we give you the conditions for healing. We will love you first and trust that love is more powerful than force and judgment. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. Housing First embodies that openness, meeting people where they are, not where we demand they be. Pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Housing First honors this pluralism by recognizing that there is no single path to healing or recovery. Some people may pursue sobriety. Others may take different paths. Housing First respects people's autonomy and dignity by allowing them to make choices about their own lives. It trusts that people know their own needs. It embraces our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. Our value of interdependence says we honor the interdependent web of all existence. None of us truly survives alone. The illusion of rugged individualism is just that, an illusion. Every one of us relies on networks of care and support. Teachers, doctors, neighbors, friends, communities. Housing itself is a social creation. We build homes together. We create neighborhoods together. We build the conditions for stability together. Housing First acknowledges that when people fall through the cracks, it's not just their problem, it's our shared responsibility. We covenant to create and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality and justice. We will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. What greater repair is there than welcoming someone home? Generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Generosity is not simply about charity. It's about the willingness to invest in the well-being of others. It's about recognizing that a thriving community is one where everyone has the basic conditions needed to live with dignity. Generosity asks us to imagine a society where no one is forced to sleep outside, not because they have proven themselves worthy, but because we have decided that human dignity matters. It asks us to share our resources, not as a transaction, but as a covenant, binding us together in mutual care. And at the center of these values is love. Love is the power that holds us together. Love is not just something we feel. Love is something we build. Love is something we structure into our communities. Love shapes the choices that we make about housing, healthcare, education, and public life. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. If love truly is at the center of our faith, then love asks us difficult questions. Who is safe tonight? Who has shelter? Who has a place to rest? And who does not? Housing First is not a perfect solution. No policy ever is. But it represents a change in how we see one another. Instead of asking what's wrong with this person, it asks what would help this person come home. And that question is deeply spiritual, because home is not only a building. Home is belonging. Home is safety. Home is the place where the body can finally relax and say, I made it through the day. When we help create that kind of stability for others, we're not only addressing homelessness, we're building a community grounded in love, a community where our values, equity, justice, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity are not just words, but lived realities. Go back here. And in doing so, we move a little closer to the world our faith calls us to imagine, a world where everyone has a place to call home. There is a real fear in many of us about unconditional welcome. The fear that if we give something without requiring something in return, we'll be taken advantage of, that people will abuse our generosity. This anxiety is primal. It is wired into us, and I understand it. But I want to suggest, as gently and as firmly as I can, that this is not what our faith is asking of us. Our faith is one of radical welcome. It's a tradition that's based on the belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all human beings. Housing First embodies this spiritual truth. It says we won't wait for you to become perfect before we treat you as important. So what's being asked of us? More than a feeling, more than a nod of agreement, our tradition calls us into right action. To work with others for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. As I said before, love is not something we feel, love is something we build, and building requires showing up. There is work to do at every level, and I have asked the folks at our Affordable Housing Organizing Network to give us a few concrete places to start. First, join the movement. There is an Affordable Housing Organization Network. Join up with it. Get on the email list. Show up to meetings. Add your voice to those of us who are demanding change. There's power in numbers, and there's power in persistence. The network needs people of faith who are willing to do the long work of organizing, not just the short work of agreement. Second, meet with power. Schedule a meeting with your city council member. Ask them directly, what are your plans to address affordable housing? What will you do about our awful regional housing needs assessment numbers that show how far we're falling behind? And what is your plan to house those 94 people who were left on the streets by the University Terrace decision that we've talked about here? Don't let them speak in generalities. Demand specifics. Bring neighbors. Make it clear this isn't a fringe issue. This is a moral priority for people of faith in their ward. Third, demand the city invest more in affordable housing, both in staffing and in funds. Right now, the city has 10 staff members working on economic development, and not one of them is dedicated to ensure that those jobs they attract come with affordable housing, affordable places for those workers to live in. That's a moral failure dressed up as fiscal responsibility. The Department of Housing and Human Services needs $3 to $5 million a year, they've said, to fill financing gaps in affordable housing projects. 3 to 5 million. In a city budget, that's not an impossible ask. It's a choice. And any tax increase proposal that comes before the city must include designated funding for affordable housing, not as an afterthought, but as a specific commitment. We must show up to our budget hearings. We must write letters. We must make ourselves heard. Fourth, ask Mayor Locke Dawson to make affordable housing a priority. She has staff and she has a bully pulpit. She's used both to attract industry to the city. We're asking her to direct that same energy, equal to, if not exceeding her efforts for economic development, toward ensuring the people who already live here have a place to call home. The mayor signals what matters. We need her to signal loud and clear that affordable housing is not a side project. It is central to whether this city thrives or abandons its most vulnerable. Fifth, educate yourself and others. The arguments against affordable housing are often based in personal anecdotes and tend to be loud and emotional and rooted in fear rather than actual fact and numbers. We need to be prepared to refute it with our knowledge. After the service today, I've got this suggested reading list, which also has a link on the back to where you can learn more about how to get involved with the Affordable Housing Network and just more ways that you can get active on housing justice. These are books from educated professionals who have studied this work for decades. Read them, share them with your friends, and when someone in a neighborhood meeting says supportive housing will destroy property values, be ready with the evidence that the opposite is true. When someone says people need to pull themselves up, be ready with the science that says stability must come first. Our faith values reason alongside love. Let's use both. In our own congregation, we can ask how our charitable giving, our volunteer energy, and our community partnerships align with the evidence about what actually helps. We can support organizations that practice housing first. We can resist the NIMBY impulse, not in my backyard, impulse when supportive housing is brought up in our neighborhoods. And we must remember that the question is never, will this affect my property value? The question is, will this save lives? And we can think about our own theology. We can resist the belief in conditional compassion, the idea that we should only help those who seem deserving, those whose suffering has an acceptable cause, those who are making what we consider sufficient effort to help themselves. Real compassion, the kind rooted in a genuine belief in inherent worth, is not soft. It is demanding. It demands that we build systems and support policies worthy of the dignity we proclaim. It demands that we measure success not by whether people have satisfied our conditions, but by whether people have homes. So I want to come back to where we began. That person in the cold street, shivering, exhausted, carrying everything they own in a bag or a cart. Imagine you have the power right now to give them a safe place to sleep tonight. A room with a door that locks. Warmth. Imagine pausing before you hand them the key and say, first, I need you to prove to me that you've dealt with your drinking. First, I need you to show me that you're in a treatment program. First, I need you to demonstrate how you can hold down a job. Then I'll give you a place to stay. How does that feel? I suspect, if we think about it honestly, it feels a little less like compassion and more like a transaction. And our tradition has spent centuries trying to answer the question of what you do next. The evidence and our values are pointing in the same direction. Give them the key. Not because they've earned it, but because they are human. Because love is home. Because home is where the nervous system softens and where survival mode ends. Because when we help create stability for others, we're not only addressing homelessness, but we're building a community with love at the center. A community where justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity are not just words, but lived realities. And in doing so, we move a little closer to the world our faith calls us to imagine. A world where everyone has a place to call home. Amen and blessed be. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam, for an informative and impassioned service this morning. I need you to return control.
There you go, right there.
All right. Our closing hymn is We Shall Be Known by Mamuse. Enjoy the message and the gift of music. And if you know the words, feel free to sing along as the Spirit moves you.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
As we extinguish this flame, may we carry its smoke with us into the streets, into the places where holiness is hard to see, but always waiting to be noticed. Let us go with eyes open for wonder and the worn out, with reverence for each passerby, and with the knowing that the sacred does not hide from the world. It lives in it. Go now, not to escape the brokenness, but to journey beside it, and sometimes to bless it. Thank you, Adam, for sharing your valuable time and insights with us this morning. Sincerely appreciated. We look forward to seeing you again. We also thank Tinka Friend for accompanying the hymn in the American Sign Language. We'll have a few minutes for discussion, question, and answer here in the sanctuary in just a minute. For those who wish to share your thoughts and observations of today's topic, please be aware this will be included on the video that is posted. And please keep your comments brief, as we have a congregational meeting coming up soon after. And so just a few comments, please. Otherwise, you are now welcome to adjourn into the parish hall for further fellowship and the Sunday luncheon. Please join us back in the sanctuary for the congregational meeting following the lunch if you are willing and able.
What time does the congregational meeting start?
About noon.
Okay.
Okay, we've been blessed with it being okay. What?
Did you designate that there's against what the class
No.
is? Or
You'll see a designation out there. If you're just staying for a little while to have snacks, that's one table. The other table says congregation for the congregation, and it's for people who are staying for the meeting. Thank you.
And feel free to use the fans in the parish hall, but before you leave the building, please replace them back here, right here with the glass.
Anyone have a comment or an observation they'd like to share? Please step up here to the microphone. Give us your name.
My name is Sandra Verhagen, and thank you, Adam, for that excellent
sir.
presentation. My question is, oftentimes I'll see someone unhoused on the street, and I'd like to help them. And this desire to help is not out of sympathy or feeling sorry. It's because I personally was homeless back in the 80s. Also, as a child, there were multiple times when I went through the trash looking for food because there was literally nothing to eat in my home. So when I see someone, I've been there, I've done that, I know what it's like. What is the best? I usually give people cash so they can buy whatever they want, but what is the most appropriate way?
One of the things you can do is share your story with them of how you moved up from homelessness to being where you are now. And Adam, comment?
Yeah, I think that is great, sharing your story, and I mean, helping them financially is important because they need that. That obviously isn't going to get them a home and get them off the street and get them. So, you know, at least to your own ability. But I think honestly, there's helping them in that moment, but also just committing yourself to work for that society where we don't have that, right? Because thinking about this isn't necessarily their sin and their failing. This is something we as a society need to think about. What can we do to be a society that doesn't have homelessness, right? And so I think that's one of the best things you can do for them. Of course, you've got to help them in that moment to your ability as much as you can, but doing the work of supporting the organizations and working, within our government to bring about that kind of society is probably the most important thing.
Adam, what's the name of the organization you said one could contact and in order to get information from them and be able to help them with their message?
Yeah, so if you'd like to get involved in this work, one thing you can talk to Dan right there. He's kind of running our affordable housing organizing network. But if you get the suggested reading list, there's a link on the bottom, and Dan's email is there, so you can email him and ask to be put on that email list, so that you can show up at these city council meetings and whatever else it is that needs to be done in the future to make sure. Because again, yeah, helping people in that moment is a great need, but the ultimate help is to work towards creating that society where we don't have that homelessness.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Bill?
Again, my compliments to you, just in the way that you kept bringing it back to centerline and our values. I'm going to have to learn how to do that more effectively, and that was a wonderful example on how to do it. As far as what she had said earlier, here's some stuff I'll do. Is as a security guard, I see for my complex, I see people different stages of housing along the way. One thing I try to do, partially because I grew up feeling very clumsy with my hands. The fact that I went in to be a jet mech when I was in service should not make you feel nervous at all. But the thing I always try to do is to say, you have a toolbox. I try hard to say, okay, is this stuff, if they're chemically impaired, it's like, is this the right fuel for the situation? Like when you work security, sometimes you have people offer you a beer. And I would go, wrong fuel for the circumstance, that this is not the thing that will help me for the next few hours be the best that I can be. But to sit there and say, you have a toolbox. These guys do feedings at this hour. These people do clothing giveaways. We need to get back to having pieces of paper that talk about all the feedings and all the tools that are being offered, so that at any given time, our people, in whatever stage of being that they're at, can say, I can do this next Tuesday. I can keep the clock ticking, because the big enemy in California is time freezes on you. It's a hot climate, but the time freezes, and you can waste gallons of time with very little effort at all. But yeah, let them know that there's a toolbox. Let them know where the toolbox is, and let them know about resources that might be there, like the free law clinic along that's down here on 10th and Lebanon. Also, things that they might not think about, like saying, "Hey, people, that's a can. That can of it. Don't feed yourself on impulse food. What you do is you get yourself a can opener, and you go to a store, and you go to like a package of a can of vegetables. You buy a few plastic forks, a can of vegetables, a can opener, and open up the food that's cheaper, so you can do what's needed."
Thank you, Bill. Dave?
Hi, my name's Dave Van Voris, and I know what it's like not to have a roof over your head. Back when we were called street people, I spent age 17 through 21 on the road, and experienced a change in locations due to circumstances. But I wound up buying some land, no utilities, off the grid, $95 down, $40 a month, 7% interest, $4,600. Moved onto it in a 1952 International Metro van. A relative gave us a single wide trailer, and all my street people friends from Santa Cruz showed up. And we ate out of the dumpsters. And over the years, I bounced around until I finally had an epiphany. I ran out of gas in Morro Bay, California. Ran out of gas, ran out of money. I was living in a 66 Chevy panel truck. Somebody said, why don't you go down to that seafood place? They hire people. So I did, bright and early, and they looked at me and they said, no, we ain't got nothing. So the next day I went back. They said, weren't you here yesterday? And I said, yeah. Sure, there's something I could do. And they put me to work doing some grunt work, cleaning out towel bins. And on day 3, I went back again. And they said, you know how to cut fish? And I BS'd them. Oh, yeah, I've been doing it since I was a kid. Anyway, I wasn't doing it for 5 minutes, and this big guy named Jimbo comes walking over and says, no. I said, come here. And took over this big pile of these little ones and said, don't cut yourself. I wound up there for 3 years. Worked my way up to doing the custom cuts for the restaurants. But I had an epiphany. Am I going to be doing this for the rest of my life? No. I decided to go back to school and work on my nursing degree for RN. And I did that. I started knocking off the prerequisite classes, and they had a waiting list. Oh, I don't know how many years, but there was one in New Jersey that went by GPA, and I had a good GPA, so I got right in. And I worked 2 jobs, went to school full time and raised a young son. And I got to where I am today. I came back to Riverside to see my mom and dad. They were getting old. I'm glad I did. Went all over town looking at a house. I didn't see anything I liked. And I sat down at my mom's kitchen table, and she was cooking dinner. The phone rang. It was a lady down the street wanting to know if anybody wanted to buy her house. So I went walking down there, and serendipity, I wrote my name as a kid in the curb, the concrete. But today I'm blessed. I have a roof over my head. I have a soft bed to sleep in. I have a hot shower, food in the refrigerator. And, everybody who's on the streets today has the odds stacked against them. A hand up instead of a handout. If someone really wants to get off the streets, they can do it. But it's not easy. It's not an easy road, especially through the legal system. Once you get arrested, that jacket you have to wear.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, my father taught me how not to get caught. Just walk away. And I'm blessed today with all the comforts of life. I initially was opposed to opening the annex to sober living, but I have changed my mind about that, giving it some thought. And, I'm sure that helping people with a hand up is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Adam, do we have anyone on Zoom? No? Okay. Well, thank you. Oh, one? Okay. Thank you. Thanks for coming up. Name, please.
My name is Dan Hawksworth. I am the co-chair of the Affordable Housing Organizing Network in Riverside. I want to thank Adam for a really comprehensive presentation on Housing First. And he's outlined to you some really important ways to be involved. I would love to have more people involved. We have probably 60 to 70 people now in Riverside actively engaged in this. The University Terrace decision was an alarm bell to all of us in Riverside. that we are not doing our job as a community, and our council is not leading the way. Our mayor is not leading the way. We need to lead the way. It's up to us to set the standards of the type of community we want, and now is the moment. Adam referred to the RENA numbers. We produce less than 1%, 47 units in the category of University Terrace, okay, for very low income. 1% of the goal that's due January 1, 2029 since 2021, 47 units. And we have over somewhere, it changes monthly, 250 to 325 people who are homeless, who are on a waiting list, wanting housing right now in Riverside, seeking housing, and there's nowhere for them. So we need to do something about that. In addition, we don't have housing for our frontline workers, for our college graduates, for our seniors wanting to downsize. We have only produced 5% of the goal for very low, and moderate income in Riverside. And that's up to January 1, 2029. That's not very far away. It takes a long time to develop housing. But we've produced 41% of the housing goal for above moderate income. So those are the values currently being reflected in our city. So I urge you to get involved. I urge you to reach out and share this presentation to your neighbors and challenge them to take it to their spiritual leaders and say, will you address this issue? Will you talk to about it in our faith so we can understand what our moral obligations are from our religious beliefs as well, and start a movement in Riverside? That's what it's going to take. And if policy advocacy isn't here, we have great organizations in Riverside working on homelessness. Family Promise of Riverside, Claire, their executive director, is here today. I know that they can use the support from you if you want to get involved there. Path of Life Ministries also is very active. Family Promise works with family. Path of Life works a lot more with individuals. So, but those two organizations are at the table working with us. And let's create an inclusive, welcoming Riverside for everybody, especially the most vulnerable among us. Thank you.
Thank you. I encourage you, if you're coming to the congregational meeting, you may want to go out and get something to eat now. Walt?
Every so often, there's been a discussion to have an annual, I forget what's called, stipend, however you put it, a floor for every person, for every citizen. And it fails to be passed. But probably that is the most practical way to put money into the hands of every person who is a citizen. That'd be the first obvious thing, I think, to do. And the other thing is to rearrange our value system nationally so that we aren't engaged in these endless wars to fight over the various materials of the world, carving up the world between ourselves and some perceived boogeyman. Currently it's China, it was Russia, and sometimes it's both. But it's a way of being able to scare people enough to have them vote for someone who will put war at the forefront. But until we decide to start putting money into helping people instead of endless warfare and power grabbing materials worldwide, I think we'll have a problem. One way to solve this would be to look at some of the European countries. I suspect that some of them do have where they give each citizen a certain amount of money, or maybe Saudi Arabia. I think worldwide it would be a way to start rather than just coming up with our own stats. I know in China, it's been said that everybody has a job, everybody. You're assigned a task. I suspect that they're probably given some kind of housing. I wouldn't say that China is an ideal place to go. They're very harsh with their people. I'm just saying that there are probably ways that we can look into to see of a practical plan for, as we're being said, to give everybody an autonomous situation. I suspect that not everybody wants to be housed. You talk to some people who really want to just be outside, although I suspect that's a very great minority. But I think giving some money to each and every citizen every year and letting them choose what they want to do would be a very practical way to start. But to do that, we have to quit giving so much money into the military-industrial complex. Thank you.
Thank you, Walt. Michelle?
I promise I'll be brief. Thank you, Adam. And I think I've said this before, but I needed affordable housing. I was homeless, sleeping on the streets, and without affordable housing, it was not only difficult to be employed, it was difficult for me to put faith in the drug recovery program because of the shame of showing up homeless, lacking hygiene, and I had a fear of trying to get myself involved in my need for recovery because of my homelessness and lack of quality of life. And I literally was unemployable, had to wait until I was able to get my VA mental health income, and then later got old enough to sign up for Social Security retirement and was able to rent a place to live. And now that I'm back from Arkansas, which was a bad experience, my rent is so high that I still struggle with the quality of life. And I feel involved in working toward having affordable housing for everyone based on my experience, not just helping serve the poor and homeless on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, and being present with them to show them that there is a better quality of life, even though it was such a struggle for me to be able to attain it. Affordable housing would make it possible.
Thank you. Thank you. There are no further comments. Let's adjourn to the parish hall and prepare for our congregational meeting. Thank you, Adam.